Jackson, Leicester versus Arsenal is the no, you aren't in the Big Six derby. Now, here is the talking point I did want to discuss. We'll go back to that Premier League table. Arsenal's finished. I don't know if someone can find it for me. When was the last time Arsenal finished in the top 6? Was that 2 seasons ago?
Yeah, Wenger's last season, I think. Right. No, Emery maybe might have done it as well. But so, yeah, they've been nowhere near for at least 3 or 4 years.
Now, as the years have gone on, initially there was sort of the top 2 in Man United and Arsenal. Then it became the top 3 with Chelsea and Liverpool. Top 4, with Chelsea and Liverpool getting involved in that. Then Spurs got involved and then Man City made money and it became a Big Six. At what point do Leicester City get swapped in for Arsenal?
Never.
Is that? I just wanted to see. I just wanted to check. Does that just never happen? Because if Arsenal finished, where did they finish last season? I feel like they finished 10th or something last season.
It's not. It isn't. Jim, my point isn't that Leicester are a lesser club than Arsenal in terms of what they can do on the pitch consistently. It's about the eyes on the club. So there will always be a top 6 based on the global audience around that football club. The Premier League will always want the biggest and the most successful global audience to be the teams that have the most successful global audience to be the ones that are at the top of the league. Because that's what funds it.
But what about if... But Spurs were a long way off all of that, and no one used that phrasing. It was only until you became a team that constantly finished in those places. Same goes to Man City. Yeah. Everyone jokes about Man City and their lack of fans, but they're still in the Big Six, top 6, because they're constantly up there.
They've got fans all over the world, and Leicester haven't. This is not about domestic.
No, but here's my point with this: is that Leicester City team is quite young. It's got a really good manager. It's got good backing. It's had good recruitment, like Fofana coming in.
Absolutely.
Right, all of these things. If they finish, and say they all stick together, that's a team that's won the Premier League recently as well. If they stay in the top 4 or 5, 3 years on the trot, are we still, and Arsenal, who I think, if you're a reasonable Arsenal fan, you would take finishing in the top 8 this season, right?
Yep.
So that's going to be 2 years on the bounce where they've not done very well. And it could be another year before that goes there because the money that they've spent there, poor recruitment, blah, 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 blah. Are we still going to just keep calling it this Big Six, or is it going to change? Because surely at some point, if Leicester keep this moving forward, they get to go in that world, do they not?
Yeah, of course they do. If they can sustain it in the same way that Tottenham did. Like 10 years ago, you're right. Spurs weren't a part of that conversation when it was top 4. We weren't. So you're right. Yeah, you do need to be sustainably successful. The problem they've got is if Brendan Rodgers leaves, if Ndidi leaves, if Maddison leaves, if Barnes leaves, if Chilwell leaves. Chilwell didn't leave a club that was above him, but above where they were. He left a club that was on the descendancy under Lampard. But because of... And, that may be correct. But, Chelsea are performing very well without playing him as it stands. But if Leicester stay in the top 4 long enough for them to grow their audience and financial stability outside of what everybody gets in the Premier League, then, they can become a part of the top 6. But Arsenal will always be there if their global fan base is bigger than Leicester's. It's not about credibility. It's not about that. It isn't about how good your team is. It's not about how long you've been good. It's about how many people are watching your team play every week and how much NBC or the Chinese sports stations are willing to pay. And that's what makes you a Big Six club. I don't like it, Jim.
I don't think that's true, though. I don't think that's true, mate. Because I think success on the pitch leads to the opposite.
Undeniable. It's undeniable.
No, but the reason those teams are so... these are the established teams, and that's why they're watched and have got so many fans around the world. But I think Man City breaks a lot of the rules that you're talking about there, because they've only got it because they've had success over the last 10 years. So, and Leicester City, they're massive in Thailand. They're quite big abroad as well. So they're going to generally get there.
You tell me why they're not then.
No, I'm saying that I would suggest that I think within 2 years, if Leicester City carry on the trajectory that they're on, and Arsenal continue on the trajectory they're on, I think we start talking about Arsenal. We talk about Arsenal like the way we talk about Leeds.
Yeah, okay. So if they can do it, if they lose Brendan Rodgers and they lose the players that they've got currently, and what they've got now is a fucking wonderful mixture of talent, of attitude, and a really, really good manager. If they lose all those again after they've recovered from the league title win and going down the mountain after that, if they do that again and can sustain their position in the top 6, then genuinely they probably will get the fan base outside of the Premier League and could be considered top 6. But there isn't, there has been a big 4 or a big 6 for the last 30, 40 years of football in England before the Premier League. And it's never changed. It's always been Manchester United, Everton, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea. The only change has been Manchester City because they've had so much money invested in them. But if you look at the global fan base of Manchester United, Manchester City rather, then you wouldn't put them in that picture. But it's just because their balancing factor is the fact that they've just been pumped full of cash.
Yeah, they've been successful and they've got the best players. I think that's what I mean. I think that how good you are on the pitch breeds everything else. I think Spurs
We'll see.
I get what you're saying about, because again, I think you can pick the bones on that on Spurs, because you go, yes, okay, huge club, yes, massive fan base, but you were mediocre for 15 odd years.
We weren't a part of that conversation, and we became a part of that conversation for sure, based on.
So it's up for grabs. I think it's up for grabs. I think the Big Six is dead now.
Yeah, but it's not up for grabs if it's just about how well you perform on the pitch. It's not. It's up for grabs if you have a company around you that can perpetuate your brand further than just domestic viewership. And that's the sad thing about it. It's not about how good you are anymore. It's just about how good your marketing director is. That's the fact. Like the Spurs rebranded their badge. I don't know if you knew this. In 2006, we had our which was more in keeping with the traditional badge. It had the tree, the Seven Sisters, the 7 trees, the Seven Sisters that had the Bruce Castle monolith inside our badge. They took it all out and just made this very clean cockerel. Now the previous badge was all about where Tottenham were from. Like the Seven Sisters is a road that runs from where Arsenal play all the way up to Tottenham, and the Bruce Castle. Bruce Castle was a local building that was representative of the area. And what we did is take all of that away because it means nothing to anyone outside of who supports Spurs on a local basis. And that was good for us in business sense because it made us more marketable for the rest of the people out there. So as soon as Leicester can do that, then they could potentially become part of the top 6. If they can't find money elsewhere over and above the many millions they get paid for playing in the Premier League each year, or the Champions League if they continue to do it, then they won't be a part of it. And that's all I'm saying. They're good enough to be, sure.
Well, it's interesting. I just think it's interesting because you've got, think of that 6. And then I think Everton with the money that they're pumping into the team, Leicester, the same kind of thing. I think Leeds have got a lot of potential there. I could see them being a lot of new football fans teams. I don't know. I think that element of it is exciting. And,
it's interesting. It's really interesting. I'd much rather. I remember a time where I thought that I'd never see a top 4 that didn't consist of Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Arsenal. I remember talking about on our podcast 10 years ago, the Fighting Cock podcast, saying we will never have. It probably was before that actually. We will never have a top 4 that doesn't consist of these 4 teams. So I was wrong then, thankfully.
Yeah,
and hopefully I'm wrong again.
Because that's it. When I look at that Premier League table, I'm like, this is great. Like Leicester City were in, they were in Division 2 a few seasons ago. Man City, obviously, that's a different kind of different. There's different bits to that. But West Ham in the season they're having, Aston Villa coming back from where they were last season. Arsenal down here in 11th. Spurs down here in 9th. It's decent.
It's good. It's much better. Much more healthy.
Right. Someone just said in the chat, this is a lot of football chat. Right. Let's calm that down now. That needs to end.